Hello, everybody. My name is Noah Newman, Technology Editor with Strip-Till Farmer, and welcome to this Strip-Till Farmer webinar, Mixing Made Simple, a farmer-to-farmer look at automated chemical mixing. And our presenters today, Doug Applegate, owner of Praxidine, and the one and only Cole the Cornstar, joined forces to explain how automated chemical mixing systems can streamline on-farm workflows for spraying, strip-tilling, planting, and more. So without further ado, Doug and Cole, I'll toss it over to you and let you guys take it away.
All right. Well, on my first slide here, I wanted to talk about why mixing matters more than ever. So on our farms these days, budgets are tight these days. We're all feeling it. We're all farmers. We all feel it. And we're trying to do more with what we have. And as farms grow, spraying gets to be more difficult to get it done. So the windows of opportunity are tighter. And that's also why most of us own sprayers is we want to get things done timely. So multiple things about this. Labor's hard to find. Sometimes your sprayer operators need a little help with record keeping or mixing and measuring and all those things. I have some quotes at the bottom of these pages, and these come from our customers. And usually there's a little backstory with them. So I will share about these quotes. So Johnny from Kansas says, 2 things I wouldn't spray without: AutoSteer and MixMate. Johnny sprays about 80,000 acres a year. And that's would be even harder to do without his MixMate. And I know his AutoSteer helps lower the stress. So he puts in a ton of hours out there in western Kansas.
I got a question for Doug.
Yeah.
If you had to throw in a quote on the bottom, what would your quote be? Because you farm too.
Ooh. I would have to think about what the quote would be, but I've always been somebody that likes to create and build things. And I just saw this as a problem a long, long time ago. And probably one of the things I care about the most is safety, because long-term exposure to chemicals I've seen that affect people. And since we're in this business, I hear it more. And I've gotten people that have just thanked us for building this. There's a father and daughter here in Iowa that the daughter mixes chemicals and the dad runs a sprayer, and they had their mix made. They were going on the spraying. They found out the daughter is pregnant. They were thankful that she doesn't get the exposure. I'm thankful my son doesn't get the exposure. So it's a big takeaway for me. My dad has Parkinson's, and you always kind of wonder if chemicals had something to do with that, So it's not really a quote, but it's one of the things that drives me. Anyway, we're going to look at mixing challenges, what long loading times cost, safety, which I just talked about, and some of the farmer experiences with MixMate. And Cole is that farmer today. And we'll do some question and answers. So what does mixing look like today when you're manually mixing? We see the picture of the mix guy there. He's looking at the side of the jug, and, we've all done that measurement where we hold it up and look at the side of the jug. And
yeah, but usually, sorry, Doug, I'm interrupting here. Usually when we do that, though, the product inside the jug is about the same color as the jug. So you're holding it up like this, and you're trying to figure out where the line is. So
yeah.
That's
are you holding the jug
one.
Straight? Are you holding the jug straight? Do you find a place to put your measuring pitcher that's level so you can measure it with the measuring pitcher? All that fun stuff, and then you see the mix guy doing the hand records in the notebook and, did the math get done right and all that fun stuff.
And usually when you're using a little jug, that's like the $300 a gallon product that you're putting on.
Yes, and that actually was one of our first customers' comments was, if you don't have a system that measures that for you, do you really have a complete system? That's going to really help you. But anyway, Nick from Nebraska says, I hate mixing chemicals, and the MixMate system makes mixing chemicals a breeze. So fun to have customers stop by the booth and share those kinds of thoughts with us. So this chart, the calculations were done using an app from Sprayers 101. And the app gives you the opportunity to put in all the parameters around your sprayer, like your boom size and your travel speed and turning speed, tank size. And you can go through and test a bunch of different scenarios with your sprayer. But what we found and what the guys at Sprayers 101 also say is the biggest thing that hurts the productivity of your sprayer would be a longer loading time. And you can see in this chart what a 5-minute loading time versus a 20-minute loading time does. So the green bar is 5 minutes loading, 10 minutes on blue, 15 minutes on orange, and 20 minutes on red. Well, lots of guys spend 20 minutes loading their sprayer. It's not uncommon whatsoever. So if you look at the difference in productivity, so say on that 1,200 gallon sprayer, it goes from 90 acres an hour to in excess of 120 acres an hour. And these calculations were done on half-mile square field, half-mile rows. I think it was set at 14 miles per hour, 120-foot boom were the settings for that sprayer. All were calculated at 14 miles per hour. But if you look at this, one thing I think is really kind of interesting. So if you look at the orange bar on the 1,200 gallon sprayer, it's right at 100 acres per hour. And then you slide over and you look at the 800 gallon sprayer with the green bar. That is also 100 acres per hour. So 10 minutes of loading time makes quite a difference. You can have an 800 gallon sprayer that gets the work done of an average 1,200 gallon sprayer. And if you got a 1,200 gallon sprayer, why do you operate it like an 800 gallon sprayer? So that productivity increase is a big deal when you can load fast. So saving 10 minutes of load time boosts sprayer productivity by 20%.
And what are we talking for a price difference between an 800 gallon sprayer and a 1,200 gallon sprayer?
Back when I did this, I believe the calculation was, I don't remember for sure if it was $70,000 or $93,000 difference between the sizes of those sprayers, but it was definitely more than what a MixMate costs. So, and those numbers are old, so the spread's probably a little wider these days because sprayer prices have gone up a lot since I first did this. So one of the things I found doing all this math is when you spent 10% more on a sprayer, so upping the capacity by increasing the spend by 10%, it only increased your productivity by 10%, which I thought was really interesting. Excuse me. But the other thing I found was if you improve that loading time by, say, 10 minutes and boost your productivity 20%, the actual cost, the marginal cost increase of buying the MixMate to do that, you actually saw about 3 times bigger improvement for that extra spend. So it might be more like you spend the extra for MixMate and you get a 30% boost in your productivity, or 30% of what the sprayer would cost if you spent 10% of the money on the sprayer. If you put that into MixMate, you'd see about a 30% gain is kind of how it worked out doing all the math. So Anyway, I'm going to go on to the next slide. I've got a scratchy throat. Excuse me. So we own our sprayers for timeliness by and large. I mean, there is definitely cost savings over hiring the local commercial applicators, but a lot of the reason why we have it is for timeliness. We have weeds that if they're not sprayed on time, it's a multi-year problem. Getting applications done when you need it is a big deal. Fungicide applications, timing's important. And so that's why we own our sprayers typically. And you also see the mix guy there, estimating the amount of chemical he's got in the inductor. And then he's holding one of those little meters that has to be calibrated, and the clutter and all that on your trailer is just not a fun thing. So anyway, the quote, "Save so much money because of this system. It completely changed our operation. We went from 2 hours to 20 minutes. So these are some brothers in Illinois, and they were buying hot loads from the local ag retail. And the reason they went from 2 hours to 20 minutes was they started mixing on the farm, and they didn't have to go sit in that line at the ag retail. So they saved a bunch of time. They could keep their sprayer rolling, but they were hauling semi-tanker loads of chemical out. And it gave them the flexibility to price shop. And so that's where the big money savings came in. And they paid for the mixing system almost immediately, just on chemical cost.
So I actually have an example of this, being able to price shop. So we have a local ag retailer 3 miles down the road where we could get hot loads out of, and we'd be buying everything through them. And we got pricing from them to a place that was an hour away. And the place that was 3 miles down the road was $20,000 more than the place an hour away. And the 3 miles down the road, they wanted us to go pick up the product, and the place an hour away would deliver everything to our farm.
Mm-hmm. Which was a $10 an acre difference for you.
Yeah. And that's
pretty easy to realize.
And that's 1 year. So, I mean, you multiply that over 5 years. I mean, that's $100,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It adds up. Yeah, totally. So now this is the part where I wanted to just kind of have more of a conversation, and Cole shared these talking points with me that he wanted to kind of visit about, and about his experiences with Mixed Mate. And Cole, we're coming up on a friend anniversary here. Maybe start out how did we meet?
Okay, so on our farm, we had the standard chemical inductor right in the middle of the trailer, to the funnel bottom, and you'd be up there dumping jugs in, and you'd have the little things that you're supposed to calibrate, but they were never calibrated. So you'd be looking at the lines on the side of the trailer. And in a lot of our fields, we have to park our trailer on the road, on the side of the road, in order to be able to get the sprayer up to it. And so when you're sitting on the side of the road like this, I'm looking at the inductor, and I see everything just sloshing to one side. And ours had a band right around the middle, like at like the 12-gallon mark. And it seemed like every product you put in, it always sat somewhere on that band. So you couldn't even eyeball it through what the sight line on the side said.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was trying to do some research to figure out how we could get some sort of scale or something on the trailer where we could actually get an accurate representation of what we were putting in. Because it never failed, we'd be 80 acres from being done spraying, and we'd run out of product. And by the time you do that 4 or 5 years in a row, it's like, man, we're bleeding product somewhere, and we don't know where, because, we think we're on the line. And so I was doing some research, trying to find things, and I actually went to a trade show, and then I found the Mixed Mate there. And at that time, it was not Doug. It was more like a concept at that time. is what I felt. And then I continued to do some more research, never really found anything that impressed me too much. It was all really complicated stuff. And then I went to the Iowa Ag Expo and I ran into Doug and Kathy, and they had a whole thing set up. And I was blown away on how simple they were making the mixing process. And so I think that was 2019 when we met, Doug. And so
Wow.
we've been running since.
Those years go by pretty quick, but it's been fun, just to have the interaction. And honestly, I enjoy meeting all of our customers. So, and these days, I don't know most of our customers, but I do enjoy them stopping by to visit us at shows. But Cole, we got to come over and help you set up your trailer. And so that was a bunch of fun. And anyway, start talking about the advantages you're seeing these days.
So when we got into the Mixmate, my initial wanting to get in was just for the simplicity of the mix and knowing that we were getting the products that we needed and we weren't doing extra or we weren't undershooting ourselves. But as we started running the Mixmate, then I started to realize there was so many more advantages that I didn't even realize were there. Like if we were pulling hot loads out from wherever, I didn't have to worry about it sitting on the trailer overnight, because a lot of times when you're mixing 4, 5, 6 products together, they may be fine for an hour or 4, but you leave something sit overnight, or if you get a rain day or two, and all of a sudden you've had that sitting on there 2 or 3 days, stuff starts to settle out a little bit. You get those little chunks of goop down at the bottom, and then ultimately that all ends up in the sprayer, and then it's never fun when you start plugging tips because of something like that. So with the ability to mix everything on the trailer and not run the hot loads, I don't have to worry about having anything sit because we're just mixing it on the fly.
Mm-hmm. So I know you've seen where like water quality and things can affect the tank life of the chemistry. What do you see out there?
Yes, the pH of our water is incredibly important for us, particularly in the fungicide area. So if you ever go get curious, look up the half-life of fungicide at different pH levels of the water. If you get to like, say, a 9 pH in water, which is high, but your fungicide may have a half-life of like 5 minutes at that pH. And if you're at what's considered a good pH, you may have a half-life of 8 hours. So if we mix up a hot load of fungicide on our farm and we let it sit overnight, we may come back in the morning and have half the efficacy of our product simply by just letting it sit in the water. Mm-hmm. And so for us, sorry, you can go, Doug.
Okay. Well, we're doing more and more biological things too. And I really feel like those need to be mixed and used as quickly as possible because you've got a live organism. And when you mix that, it's putting that organism into a different, into water that's different than what it was in the jug. And the sooner you can get it in the field, I think it helps it a bunch.
So I know for us this year, we got smacked with southern rust really bad. So fungicide applications were incredibly important for us. We still got dinged after doing them, but if we were putting something on that had a half efficacy or even less, if we had it sitting there even longer, let's say we had a rain day or 2, then, we'd have our expensive fungicide application plus our product and then get 30% of efficacy out of it. So, that would be a ding, 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 just bad all the way around.
Right. Yeah. So then talk about clean out and things.
So you were mentioning the safety aspect of everything. And that was what just glared out to me almost immediately when we have a hot load in a tank. When we switch from corn to beans, you got to clean that tank out. And when you're climbing up to the top of a tank, number one, you're having to climb up to the top of your tank, which you're 12 feet off the ground with a power washer wand in your hand. That's probably not the most safe thing to do in the first place. But then I have one hole that I'm looking in and I'm power washing it, and everything comes right back up at you. And I try not to be around chemicals if I don't have to, but in that case, you have to clean out your tank. So what are you going to do? Where when I have the mix mate, we just keep water in our tanks. So we don't even have to clean our tanks out. Honestly, at the end of the year, I just clean them out if you get a little bit of grunge down in the bottom. But when you're power washing in there and it's just water's been in there, you feel very safe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then that also applies on the clean out side of the pumps. So when we're transferring product before, when I have the one I just hooked to the bottom of the toe and I'm up there with the meter that doesn't actually work, I would have to get a jug and, you're out sucking water through that, trying to get it clean, and you're just making a mess, whether you're doing that on the ground or wherever you're doing it. Where with the MixMate, I can run everything. I can keep everything hooked up, and it is where we can just flush water through the lines of everything, and then I can run it up into the sprayer. So I can, number one, I don't have to touch anything. There's no splatter involved at all while cleaning things out. And then I can just put it on the sprayer and I can just go spray it off in the field.
Really nice when I think on your system, don't you have the fittings so you rinse like the connection to the tote before you ever unhook even?
Yes. So then I don't get the drip on my trailer either.
Mm-hmm.
Our trailer's got the deck boards on it. So in the past, if you were unhooking something, it would all drip through on the deck boards and then run down over everything. And then every other jug you'd be setting up there the rest of the year you're walking through, you just have all this residue all over the trailer. But now, we don't have that. When you unhook something, it's already been rinsed, just water going down on the trailer.
Yeah.
It's clean.
So you'll be glad to know that the software update for the spring is going to have an easy button even to help that process out. So it'll be good. It'll be great.
I'm probably an over cleaner when it comes to this stuff, but it's just so important to make sure things are clean when going from one product to the next. I think we've all accidentally had an area where we forgot to clean, and then you have a nice 1 acre strip of your field that got fried.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's you don't mind doing the cleaning because you're not getting all dirty. It makes it basically as frictionless as possible to clean things out. And all you have to do is turn a valve and hit a button.
Yeah. It makes it part of your spray mix, so you don't have residue running out on the driveway and things like that.
Exactly. So then on top of the cleaning side of it and the safety aspect, I like it because when we have the trailer going and, it's not always just one person doing all the spraying. You a tender person, or you may have someone else you're having to have run the sprayer that day because you have something else going on. And so with the MixMate, when we can get the trailer loaded up, you get everything hooked up in place and you get your mix made, then you can basically hand the torch off to somebody else and you don't have to worry about anything being mixed in an incorrect order. You don't have to worry about incorrect amounts. It's just they can get in there and just hit the button and go. And so for me, that's a big piece of mind. I'm definitely a lot more comfortable handing over the keys, so to speak, to somebody else when we're spraying because we know we're going to get it correct. And then on top of that, we get records of everything. So if I'm not there, now I can pull up the records and I can see exactly what got applied in what field, and I can ensure that got done. And then, later, if for whatever reason there's some weird problem out in the field, I can go to my reps and say, hey, this is exactly what we put on, and I have documentation of it.
So now this last thing on here, Kathy, when she walked by and saw this and thought about Cooper laying in the hammock, that made her laugh.
Yeah, my brother is our Tinder guy, and so when we got the MixMate going, he pulls up to the field. I'm sitting there in the sprayer, he gets a hammock out of the back of the semi and he starts attaching it under the semi trailer. And so my brother just lays in a hammock all day while we're spraying. And then when we pull up, he just hops out of the hammock, he hooks us up, we fill in 5 minutes, and then he just lays back down in the hammock.
Yeah, so Cooper's mixing for you and your dad when you're running both sprayers, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my brother must like it because he always opts for doing that job.
Okay. So the quote on this page comes from David in Kansas. You don't have to worry about the paperwork or the math. The last thing I need to worry about is, did I get it right? To eliminate that problem is huge. So David's our first customer. He's out in Western Kansas and he's dealing with really complex mixes. And he has been very successful, and he's got to run odd hours because they have a dry climate and they might start spraying at 3 a.m. and maybe run till 9 or 10 o'clock and then pick up again in the evening. And it's just odd hours. It wears them out. But taking that stress off is a big deal for him.
That's a good point you just made there of running at night. So when we're putting fungicides on, I mean, it's not uncommon to get started super early in the morning while things are still a bit wet, so you can get your fungicide to spread a little bit more. And so, your first load or two may be fairly dark. And so with the MixMate, I mean, since everything's all automated on it, I just have to find the key to the pump, basically. And then I can have loads mixed, and we can get started really early. We don't have to wait for the sun to fully come up.
Yeah, and actually on our farm, I'm thinking about running fungicides more at night because we spray with the drone, and just spraying at night seems like it may help with the efficacy of the fungicides. And you get some advantages of usually the wind is low and some other things. And the drones are not any harder to fly at night than they are during the day. So I think it's a really good option. And, just keep it simpler during the night, I guess.
Exactly. And I mean, anytime you're running spraying, I mean, it's usually not a short hour day when you're running in the sprayer. And it's usually a compounded effect because you have multiple 16-hour days in a row.
Yes.
And so, I mean, by the time you're on day 4 of that and you're half fried, I mean, it's just one less thing that you have to worry about is the mix. So you just get up there, hit go on the tablet, turn the key on, it's good to go. And then, I mean, like even on the math side, when you're coming in, let's say you have a 13-acre chunk left in the field, you don't have to sit there anymore and math out each thing after you've pulled 60 hours in the last 4 days. You can just go on and say, oh, I want to do a 13-acre batch. And since everything's all softwared in, it automatically calculates up for you. And then you're off and running and you have an exact load.
Yeah, and the MixMate's is going to measure from your jugs for you too, because one of the things that happens once in a while, you like, did I put in 2 jugs or 3 jugs, or what number jug am I on? Things like that. And since it's measuring, I don't have to worry about that problem.
Or sometimes what would happen on our operation is like, let's say my dad and brother are doing an interchange and they're right in the middle of a load when they're doing the interchange on switching drivers. And maybe my dad's coming up and helping my brother. And my brother's got a system and my brother knows he's already dumped in 2 jugs. And then he turns around and sees my dad dumping a jug. But my dad doesn't know that Cooper already dumped one.
Yeah.
And so when you have the MixMate going, everything's right there on the side and it says, oh, hey, you're good. You don't need to dump in anymore.
Prompts you for whatever you need to do.
Yes, exactly. Now, on speaking of dumping jugs, most of the time when we're doing a load, basically anything that comes in a tote, we're sucking through the MixMate. And so we don't have to touch any of that. So there's very little touching. So like on soybeans, for example, I might be putting on 6 different products through the totes that get sucked through the inductor that I don't even see. And so basically the only stuff I ever have to touch would be like a 1 gallon jug of something that doesn't come in a bulk tote. So I can just get up there, dump my 1 gallon in, and then I'm off the trailer. So
Mm-hmm.
I really like that because, man, when we were doing the other ones, it just never failed. You'd always get those splatters. You'd be trying to hold the stream in a certain way so it's running down the side of the inductor so it's not splattering up, and it never failed. Like every time you dump, it either splatter and you get a chunk that lands just above your glove, or splashes up on your face, or you look down and your pants are all covered, or your arms.
Yeah. Yep.
So I like being clean.
Go ahead. I do too.
It's weird when you get done spraying at the end of the day and you look at your gloves and like they're not even dirty. They're getting dirty from when you're climbing up the ladder and you're just touching what's dusty, and that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm. We've had customers comment about they quit using gloves. I don't want to say that, but is kind of a testament to how clean the system is, because you're not dealing with measuring pitchers, and it rinses the jugs as part of the process, and all that's simple and easy. And I would prefer to have everybody wear gloves all the time, but I do hear that.
Well, I mean, I pretty much just wear gloves for the aspect of when I have to climb out of the sprayer because you're touching stuff, and then when you're climbing up on the trailer. But I mean, once I'm up there, I mean, I take them off to do everything on the mixed meat side, and then I may just put them on while you're opening a new jug or something. But and I'm super cautious about wearing gloves. So, I mean, I feel like if I can take them off, it's a pretty clean environment.
Cool. So I think last thing I'm here to talk about is how long does it take to load your sprayer?
Well, it depends how fast you want to be, because I find myself to be the limiting factor. If my brother is running the tender and he sees me coming up and he didn't fall asleep too hard in the hammock, he can get out and just plug right up to me in 5 minutes flat. I'm in and out. And if it's me by myself, by the time you get out and stretch, you're probably at like that 7-minute mark. But it's actual 5 minutes of filling. But by the time you dork around a little bit, but it's fast. And when we first started using the Mixmate, I remember thinking like, oh, it didn't take us 5 minutes before. And you actually time yourself doing it. I mean, you may say 20, but I mean, half an hour rolls around pretty quick by the time you get all the pumps started. You have a little bit of issues getting one started, or you got to put fuel in one, get all your jugs together. And I mean, it was definitely more of a time spend than I realized.
Yeah. People think that maybe sometimes they think the system's not as fast as what it actually is, because they're not scurrying around and busy while they're loading. They're doing a lot more watching than loading. It's kind of like, is the water ever going to boil, And the reality is the time doesn't seem like it goes quite as fast because they're not having to work that whole time. They get a break, So sometimes we say, everybody claims to have the fastest mixing system, but we give you a 5-minute break.
And another thing you don't really think about is when you're doing the manual mixing. Usually when you stop the sprayer, if you got to make a phone call, that's when you're going to do it when you're sitting. So you may roll up to the trailer, and then if you have a phone call going on and then you start mixing, that compounds even more. Where with the Mixmate doing everything by itself, I can have my phone call while it's mixing, and then once I hear everything shut off, I just turn my pump off, and then I'm already ready to go.
So the comment at the bottom, 2 things. This comes from Jason in Illinois. 2 things. It's exact. No system I've seen can come even close to the same level of accuracy, which leads to the second point. It's stress-free. Fully automatic calculations and mixing make loading the sprayer a dream. Push a button and it's done. I'll never mix manually again. He says an awful lot in that statement. And, it's simplified. One of the things that Jason said, like it may have been the very first year, but his end of the season record keeping was cut down from 2 days to 2 hours because the amount of product that he bought matched the amount of product that he used. So he didn't have to reconcile everything, basically adjust all the amounts that were used for every different farm and partner. He could just generate the reports, build landowners and shares within their family business without having to do a whole bunch of math. He could just generate the records and sort the records to give him the information that he needed. And he knew that quantities were accurate that matched actually what they purchased.
On our farm in the past, we would always order 5-10% extra on product because by the time you did have that a little bit of a heavy hand when you're dumping in, you would go through it. And honestly, half the time we'd end up having to get more product by the time we got to the end of the season. But now, when we order maybe 2% extra, just in case you got to go back and hit a spot here, there, or something. But for the last several years, we've been returning stuff. Have a little bit still left.
Yeah, and now with your right spot on your sprayer, every time you spray that field, you use the same amount. It's covering the same amount of acres, so you can plan and mix the right amount for the field.
Exactly. And it's spot on. I still have it in my head where like, oh man, maybe I should mix an extra 2 acres or something just so you have enough. And then you always get done and you have 2 acres extra sitting on you.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I need to trust it a little more.
Okay. So on this slide, I'll talk about labor just a little bit, but I need to keep some things moving along here too, so we don't get too long here. But labor is important. We have, every once in a while, you'll have an operator that's just awesome at running the sprayer and keeping equipment moving. He's productive, but maybe not so good at the record keeping and the math. So MixMate can help them out. We have customers that, the quote, MixMate helps us hire and retain help. That came from an ag retail location down in Kansas. Just everything around people. We have the opportunity, it just makes it safer. It takes stress off of your help. And then kind of along the lines of that quote, we've got another customer here in Iowa that his mixing person, he's an aerial applicator, so he's flying a lot of planes off of his MixMate system. And they had a really basic system, and they were going to lose their mix guy. And basically the mix guy says, if you upgrade your MixMate so that it handles more bulks and things just to simplify the work for him, he would stay on. But otherwise he was going to quit. So having a MixMate makes a huge difference with employee retention and satisfaction.
I know my brother, he used to help fill crop dusters. And when they had some sort of product they were putting on, but when they were dumping into their inductor, it would splash up a little bit and it was giving people chemical burns on their arms.
Insecticides. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge.
And so, you get somebody who may say, okay, well, yeah, they may be good at this job, but I don't want to keep doing this because it's burning my arms.
Right. Well,
and so
what's it going to do to you 20 years from now?
Well, exactly. And then so Cooper's like, man, you guys need a MixMate over here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to give you just a little demonstration of MixMate so you can see how it works here. Excuse me, I'm getting a dry throat. I'm going to start this video here, and we're going to see how we process jugs. And so we can use air to drain that jug. So you saw the jug drain, it weighed the chemical, and then went right into the rinsing process. So if you have a jug you want to empty, you can just put it right on the rinse nozzle, and the air can drain it out. And then you see here, we're pouring the balance into the jug or into the inductor, and it's measuring and it's weighing that chemical for us. So it makes it much cleaner when you don't have to, rinse the jugs. Um, the jug slicing things tend to not rinse things well, and you scatter chemical all over your trailer. Makes a very clean operation, and it simplifies things.
For what we're looking at here, so on the left side, the big orange square, that is what Doug is dumping into the actual inductor. So that has a scale in it. So when you're doing your load preparation work, you can put in the densities of your product. So then it knows exactly how much you're putting in. So then in the top left corner where it says water, so that's the water being flown through everything. And then the green squares are product that have already been pulled through the inductors from the big totes. And then the Prowl H2O one is one actively being pulled while Doug is mixing in the inductor. And then the white Salvin one is picked up after the Prowl one is through.
Yeah. So the inputs, the abundant, the Prowl, and the Salvin are in bulk. Oh, excuse me. They're in bulk. And so those are going through a pre-calibrated flow meter, and that is happening simultaneously as you do things in the inductor. So MixMate is capable of mixing multiple chemicals at the same time, which gives it a lot of speed.
It really is fast. I mean, there's times where I'll turn on the pump, I'll hit go on the MixMate, and I turn around and I'll grab a 2.5 gallon jug, and by the time I've turned around, I'll already have a product done, and the next one will be starting. Like it's fast.
Mm-hmm. In your system, we'll pump 2 bulks at a time. Oh, excuse me.
So on my system, we do a fair bit of foliar stuff, or we've been kind of playing in the foliar game a little bit. And so we have a gear meter set up on the one stack, and then we have a mag meter set up on the other one. So when we start doing, so gear meter, everything is all mechanically ran through the gears. As the gears turn, it's reading over to the MixMate. But on the mag meter one, it uses electricity to go through. And so on that one, if I'm putting in some foliar applications, I mean, I can be pumping like 100 gallons a minute through those. Like it's super fast. So there's times I may be putting in 150 gallons of foliar product on, and I mean, I can still get out of there in 5 minutes.
Cool. All right, let's jump to the next one. So this one, we're demonstrating how to put a dry product through the system. So we preload the inductor with water, and then we have a couple of modes. So we've got a weighing mode and we've got a continuous mode. So here we're going to hit the button and go into continuous mode. And this is where the water's just flowing straight through the inductor and out to your sprayer. And for each container, each container you put in, you hit the plus button. So it's for whole quantities in continuous mode. And then we go back to the weighing mode for the odd amounts and weigh that through with a still level of water in the inductor.
So with the continuous mode, what I like about that is, let's say you're pouring in bags of AMS, and then you don't have to fill the inductor and then bleed some water in and let it kind of dissolve a little bit and then suck it down. With the continuous, you can just dump it in and it's constantly flushing it down. So you can just dump in a bag, you hit on the tablet, I put it in a bag, it records it, and you dump in another bag, you put it on the tablet. And so it definitely makes that process a lot nicer. I really like that function.
Thanks for picking up for me because my throat is scratchy.
I'm not as experienced as you, Doug, on this, but I am like 7 years experience. So
yeah. Well, and software's changing a little bit too as we go along here. And I just wanted to give you a quick look at what it's like to run the app. So, excuse me, guys. I feel bad about the scratchy throat. So I'm just going to scrub this video a little bit. So in this screen, we would pick a work order, set our mix size, and then on the second screen, it calculates the amount of all the products going in the mix. And you see down at the bottom right corner, you hit that button and it starts mixing. So it's going to start pumping all these products through, and then you can set like holdbacks, the amount of water that gets set or rinsed the whole system out at the end. So you're always going to have water when you disconnect from the sprayer. And then we'll just jump here at the end. Basically, you can hit the Save Completed button at the end here, and it saves it, and it goes right on into mixing or ready to mix your next batch. The report tag section, you can use those for sorting your data. So on this next screen, here's a report from one load. So this is the information that's captured for every load. So you have your work order, you have the date and time that the mix was generated, total mix time. So 3 minutes and 42 seconds to mix a 600-gallon batch in our sprayer. And you can see the target and actual quantities that the system put into the mix. When you generate this report, you can sort this data, and it also gives you a total for all of the loads in the group. So for instance, this was the 25 bean post work order, and there were 17 batches mixed in this one, and it would give me the total of all those batches. Why do we build MixMate? We've talked about a bunch of this stuff. It's a dirty job. Nobody likes to do it. Safety is important. Record keeping was a big deal. And to have it done automatically, we get very accurate records. And getting mixing times down so that your sprayer is efficient was also another really important factor. Any thoughts, Cole?
Well, I mean, just with today's farming environment, I feel like your records are becoming more and more important. And in the past, you may be able to get away with some stuff, but people we're working through now, they're asking for a lot more information on what we're spraying. And I have a feeling that trend may continue going into, even being part of farm programs and stuff in the future. They want to know what you're putting on. And so this makes it easy. I know on our farm, we were kind of looking at getting a 120-foot sprayer, but by the time we started pricing into that, we figured, I think we ended up just picking up another 90-foot sprayer. And with the efficiency of the MixMate, we were having similar outputs to a sprayer that was $150,000 more.
Mm-hmm. So the quote down here at the bottom is from Joel, and he talks a bit just about connectivity and where things are going in the future, and the platform we built for MixMate is really going to be helpful going forward. So we're starting to do data connections into other systems, which ultimately we would like to merge mixing records with as applied records, so you know exactly what happened in the field and it's accurate. And also will flow on into accounting. So that's the direction we're going. And we build a platform that can support those kinds of things. So questions for us. In the picture here, we've got our MixMate Fusion on the left. You see some of the flow components in the middle. The tall section there is what we call the flow stack, a double stack, which is what Cole has on his trailer to do 6 products. And then the MixMate Pro on the right, which is all stainless, and it has options to be NTEP certified for the people that need custody transfer and legal for trade situation. And then we also have our Fusion skid, as we call it. It's a turnkey system. with 4 or 5 bulk inputs, and you can just set it by your tanks on the farm or load it on your trailer and move it around. It's kind of turnkey and ready to go and easy to set up. You just hook up your water supply and your chemicals. So, questions?
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to type them into the Q&A box, bottom of your screen, or you might have to hit that more icon with the 3 dots to open up the Q&A box. I'm not seeing anything in the box right now. I guess that means you guys covered it really well.
Wow. Well, I hope everybody didn't fall asleep. I was hoping it was kind of fun to hear us.
Oh, we got one here. Tom wants to know about calibration.
Yes. So I see 2 questions there. The skid will have an option for electric motors in the future. I don't know if they have that all set up just yet, but that will be coming. And calibration. So the gear meter is factory calibrated, and you don't have to calibrate for different chemicals. So that makes it really easy. And then the inductor side, the inductor is calibrated from the factory, but you will need the density of the products that you're running through the inductor. So the very easy way of doing that is just weighing the jug right on the inductor to get your densities.
Couple.
Yeah.
See them there on your screen?
I can see them. I can. Yep. Yes. Can I expand on what updates are coming to the app for this year? So we are, you saw the view of it. It has a whole different view to the app. It fits much better on a variation of screen sizes. So like all the way down to your phone, it works well. It gives you visibility into everything that's happening better than the old version did. We've got helpers built in for rinsing out the lines connected to your totes and to charge those lines. So the capacity of those hoses is calculated within the system. So when you're done with the tote and want the line rinsed out, there's a helper there that's going to pause the mix and have you hook up the rinse, and the quantity of chemical gets counted in. And likewise, when you're starting a new tote, it charges the line because you typically start with full of water. That's a couple of the big ones. Just a comment, this increases environmental and personal safety greatly. It does. It's really nice to work with, especially when you can rinse lines and everything. I see is measurement of the carrier done by weight or flow meter. It is done with a flow meter. We have a 3-inch mag meter on the system, and it uses that to manage the water so that you'll be sure to get all the chemicals in and not run out of rinse. So it's going to make sure all the rinsing is done and that the hose is rinsed out all the way to your sprayer. So that happens automatically. How is the inductor isolated for accurately weighing chemicals, or is it all flow meter? The bulk chemicals typically go by flow meter. Through that gear meter is most common, which is pre-calibrated. And then your inductor is on a scale. So it has load cells for weighing those chemicals. How does the system adjust for water or 32 as a carrier? Systems can be set up so you can mix off 3-inch lines as well. And the mag meter does, if you really want to get it accurate, it is good to put a separate calibration in for the 32%. It does make a bit of difference on it. And the system is capable of having multiple calibrations. So the 3-inch meter jumping from water to fertilizer, you will see that it to be the most accurate, you can add a calibration for each.
On ours, we have it set up where there's a 32% calibration and then a water calibration. So you already pre-calibrate those ahead of time. And then when you're switching back and forth on products, your calibration's already in there.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty easy process to adjust the calibration. So you run, I mean, you can measure that out, but you could go by, a lot of guys will actually match their flow meter to their sprayer meter. So if they run a load off and they see it's off a little bit, they'll figure the difference and work that back into the system.
And then Gary mentioned if there's pre-calibrated flow meters, how often should they be recalibrated? The only time I've ever had to recalibrate anything on ours is if, like Doug said, if your water one gets off a little bit. If they used to not have separate calibrations for 32 and water. You had to go in and switch it each time, but now they have it set up where there's just two separate ones. But that I had to do that every time I switched back from 32 to water. But now I guess I really haven't ever had to recalibrate anything.
Yeah. So the 3-inch meter is really the only thing that can use additional calibrations. The gear meter is factory calibrated and they are extremely accurate. They're rated plus or minus 0.5% error, and they do it. The mag meters, like Cole has a mag meter stack. The small mag meters are also very good. They're not quite as tight a calibration as the gear meter, but everybody has very good success, and we don't hear any complaints about accuracy, and they're not calibrating the small meters. What's the cost for a 3-inch system? The big variable on the cost of the system is how many bulk inputs you need. So Fusion with a 3-inch meter and a valve and one stack on the side for 3 inputs would be about $30,000. System Fusion with 6 inputs, so you'd have a double stack that would be on a separate stand. 3-inch meter and valves about $42,000. The skid with 4 or 5 inputs, and depending on pumps, those range about $50,000 to $55,000.
How many stacks can you put together on a system, Doug?
A lot. There's really not a limit to the number of inputs. So we've got systems out there currently with 20 and 24 bulk connections. There are a couple, I think, that are looking at even more than that for this coming year. So they're doing some upgrades and new systems. So up to 30 or 36, a couple of them are talking about.
So, Tom asked if the system can be told to input different herbicides in a specific order to try to avoid compatibility problems. And yes, that was a new update that Doug has this year. So you can pick the exact order that they go in, and then you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. You have full control over timing, in the new software. You can pause the mix, maybe to agitate a dry product before you start adding maybe some oil products to the mix or whatever you need to do. You've got full control over that in the user control mode in the software, which I didn't show in the video, but on YouTube, there is a video about that. Warranty is 1 year on everything. And who provides tech support? Our dealers provide tech support. It's typically the first line, 24 hours a day. For some of the dealers, they do their best to answer everybody. Our tech support, I think, is like, I don't remember what the hours exactly, 7 to 6 with a phone call. We're going to be introducing, I'm pretty sure, a chat bot that has knowledge from our knowledge base about everything in the system. That might actually be the fastest and easiest thing to get an answer 24 hours a day. Jug rinsing in the inductor. Yes. If you want to jump back and watch the webinar again after the fact, I believe you'll be able to. And we also have videos up on YouTube about this, but the jug rinse is built in and we use air to help with that rinse. So you get air and water going through that rinse nozzle, which gives it a lot of power. And it also, when it's done rinsing, your jug is empty instead of half full of water.
And it empties it in about a second. It's really fast.
Yeah. Yeah. I do recommend maybe putting an air regulator ahead of the fusion inductor. If you want to turn down the pressure, you can, because it can be a little strong and cause things to splatter, but you can dial it into what you need. So if you're doing a lot of heavy flowables, a little more air pressure is nice. And you get to an insecticide or something, you want to slow it down because they tend to splatter. What, if any, problems have you encountered with the flow meter or valves that are in the system? So these things are pretty reliable. They are mechanical devices. They can fail. Typically, that's not going to stop you, though, because there's workarounds to get things going. Gear meters are just bulletproof. There's no problems with meters themselves. You can have, we have a screen ahead of the gear meter. And if you don't run enough rinse and you run an atrazine flowable product, I have seen where if the thing sets for a while, maybe that flowable settles down into the gear meter. Maybe it would stop it. I think you had that problem at one point, Cole. But the gear meter is really simple. You can take the cover off, check the gears, slide the gears out, and put them back in. The big thing is just be sure you put them in correctly, because they have magnets and you want the magnets facing you when you put them back in, but they're super simple.
If you put it in backwards, it reads double of what is actually going in.
Yeah, if you put one gear in backwards. If you put them both in backwards, it won't read anything and it'll pause the mix. But yeah, don't put one in backwards of the other. That's the big warning thing.
So
winterization. Go ahead, Cole.
In our case, the only problems we've ever had with any of the meters would be through the case of the battery. So like we had our cord coming from the semi to the trailer that charges our battery, that came apart. And so, after doing that for a couple of days, our battery eventually started to get low on voltage. And so stuff that runs off electricity doesn't work very well if your battery isn't charged. So we did have some issues there. So we just took a jumper pack and we just would run that until we got our trailer fixed. And then we were not running enough rinse through our mix. And so we ended up getting a little bit of crystallization going on inside of the gear meter, and basically got a little piece of sand between the gears. And it's a zero tolerance thing. So it got in there and it just jammed it up. But out of 7 years, we had that happen one time. And so it was purely just because we didn't run the rinse long enough. We upped our rinse and we haven't had a problem since.
Mm-hmm. Probably the biggest issue that the most common, biggest issue that we will hear about is issues with batteries. So it's a computerized system. You've got to have battery voltage there. And the valves are designed to operate at like on a mobile implement where you've got 13.8 volts coming from an alternator. And typically with the battery, you're going to start it out around 12.7. And so we're already starting at a little lower voltage, and the system actually is monitoring the voltage all the time to keep it safe. So it will warn you if battery voltage is getting low. It will stop the mix if it has to, so it doesn't have a runaway or make mistakes. That's something that we have done over time, is just tightened up the voltage monitoring just so that everything operates smoothly. So you need a battery by the system to supply reliable power, but you also need to have a method of charging that's reliable.
For winterization, it's pretty simple. You just open everything up, open all your valves, let it all run out. We do open the top of our stack and put a little bit of antifreeze in there, but Doug said that we don't need to do that. We just do that as an extra layer of precaution. And then you winterize your pumps as you normally would. So it's really pretty simple. What I personally like to do is winterize it one day by just opening everything, and then I like drive the trailer around the block and then come back, and then I open everything up again because it seems like water for whatever reason kind of hides in little spots. So you may get, a half a cup full once you drive it around for a little bit, just to make sure that things are nice and dry.
It's a good idea to leave valves closed or cycle them multiple times as you're draining things, because if you just open the valve, there's water trapped around the outside of the ball. And if you open and close the valves and then leave them closed at the end, you get that. It gives it room for expansion within the valve that way. And you commented about putting antifreeze down through the stack. That's good. Either do that or blow a little air down through it so that you hear that gear meter whir just a little bit. The gear meter has cavities in it, and if you don't spin it a little bit or get some antifreeze through it, it can freeze and crack the gears. And I have a set of gears that I take to shows that I cracked because I didn't get it drained out well enough at leaving one of the farm shows. So I didn't blow any air down through it. I just drained it, actually.
It happened to us once too.
Yeah. It doesn't ruin the meter at all, but you would need a new gears. And they're easy to replace.
They're
not
literally
a huge deal.
They're just like plastic gears, and they just slide onto a shaft. That's it. And then they mesh together when you just slide them in, and then just put the cover back on with no ring. So it is pretty easy.
Yeah. So the question is, iPad the only option as the monitor? You can use Android or iOS devices. So it can be your iPad, other tablets. It can be your phone. Any one of those things can control the system.
All right. Well, we're coming up on 11:10 here Central Time, so we can go ahead and wrap things up. Doug, did you want to share your contact information if people have more questions about Mixmade?
Excellent idea. I'll step over here to the next slide. And I sure appreciate everyone. Noah, thanks for hosting this for us. And appreciate everyone that jumped on the call with us here today. And I will be sending out a little additional information via email to you. So look forward to that. And I hope I can provide some things that will be beneficial, whether you get a Mixmade or not. I'm going to teach you a little bit about Mixmade. I may talk about some other spraying good information that's useful. So anyway, appreciate everybody that's called in today. And thanks, Cole.
No, absolutely. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. Well,
great. This was a lot of fun. I told you the hour would fly by. So, but
yes.
As a reminder to everyone in the audience, a recording of this will be available on strip-tillfarmer.com, and you'll also receive an email within about 48 hours of that recorded presentation if you want to go back and rewatch it or share it with family, friends, members of your crew. But on behalf of Doug Applegate, Cole the Corn Star, Praxidine, and Strip-Till Farmer, thanks so much for joining us today, and hope you have a great day. We'll see you guys soon.